everybody, what's going on? Hope you're having a safe and awesome week. I am back with a rapid review this week. And what am I going to be reviewing? Well, it's a comic that I was super excited for. As soon as I got it, as soon as Jenna brought it home from the comic book shop, I made sure it was like the first thing I read. And that is Marjorie Finnegan, Temporal Criminal. This is number 1 of 8. It's going to be an 8-issue series. It's published by AWA Upshot. It's written by Garth Ennis with art by Goran Sudzuka. If I butcher your name, please by all means correct me in the comments below. Colored by Miroslav Mirva and lettered by Rob Steen. Like I said, this being a Garth Ennis book, I was super excited for it. This is sort of unlike most of the Garth Ennis book. You can still tell it's a Garth Ennis book, but if you're going into this looking for gore like The Boys or gore like Crossed, it's not really there. And I'll explain the kind of gore that is in it when I get to it. But anyway, jumping right in. So we start out with the burial of Pharaoh Ramesses. And the high priest is talking about the Pharaoh taking all of his treasures with him to the afterlife, all his possessions and whatnot, including his slaves, which will be slit ear to ear and buried with him. Well, you notice one of the female slaves kind of gets a what look on her face, and and she speaks up saying, I didn't know we were about the ear-to-ear grin. I thought we were just going to be buried with him. And her being a woman at the time, the priest just can't believe she's even talking, let alone at, the Pharaoh's funeral. And he tells the guards, to kill her. A guard comes at her with, I'm not really sure, it's called a scythe. I don't remember the actual name for it. You'll notice a lot of the weapons in here I don't really know the names for. But it kind of looks like a scythe. Like the handle is right here, and then the blade over here. Well, he swings it at her, and she ducks, and it knocks a wig off of her, and she turns on him with a shotgun and just blows him away. And this is Marjorie Finnegan's introduction. But it skips to another story kind of going concurrently with her story. It's very wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey with this, but it all makes sense in the end. But anyway, it skips over to this this Viking raid. The Vikings are raiding this town, and the townspeople are freaking out, and they're grabbing their belongings, and they run next to this hut. Well, the hut all of a sudden falls apart, and it shows a German, I think it's called a flak. It's not quite a cannon. It looks like a humongous gun. They load these large shells into it. I think that's what it's called. I think it's a flak. But again, down in the comments, correct me, because I just really didn't know what any of these weapons were. But it was sold to them by a guy named Otto. Now, Otto has the townspeople with him start firing on the ship. It's one Viking ship, but it's chock full of Vikings. And when they take the shot, it hits the ship. They blow the ship up, but one lone Viking makes it to the beach, and he's hopping out of the water. And I say hopping because he's missing the lower half of his leg beneath the knee. And one of the townspeople just decide, well, we're just going to load it up again, and they fire at him again. And this time, it takes his torso out. Now, it's not gory. It's more like, it's more cartoony. Like, because when he does this, it knocks the torso out, and it's like the arm, the head, and one of the legs, because the other leg was blown off. Still a pretty cool looking shot. Still a cool looking shot. Right after this, you see like a silhouette, and the silhouette is blacked out, but you see the hand, like a hand on the hip kind of thing. The silhouette starts telling Otto, Do you know all the temporal laws you just broke by doing this? And this is when we meet Harry. Now, we get back to Marjorie, and she's taking care of the guards, and she explains, because you're thinking at first, like, how are you killing all these people? Isn't that going to mess up time? Well, she explains that she has a device called a realigner. It had a couple different names, but it fell on the realigner. Basically what it does is it fixes time. It unscrews the situation, if you will. Basically, if she kills somebody there, what it does is it makes a new reality. Like, she crushes this one guy's throat and he dies from it. Well, his alternate fate is what they call it, is he chokes to death on a fig. So it doesn't show a woman with magical weapons killing him. He chokes on a fig. So I thought that was pretty interesting how they did that. You want to be careful with this thing, she says, because there is a limit to how many things you can unscrew. So that I'm really looking forward to see what happens when she tries to fix too much. But anyway, she grabs a jewel and she jumps out of this timeline. Once again, we go back. We jump back to Otto and Harry. And Otto's mad because, he's just trying to make a living selling these futuristic weapons to people of old. She wants to just take him in. And while she's discussing this, one of the villagers comes out and says, you one-eyed prostitute, you're not taking our sky god. And she says something along the lines of, oh, you like future weapons there? And she fires this gun, and when it shows it on the page, it's like 1,000 freaking bullet shots from this single gun. And when they cut back to him, this is one of the most cartoony looking things. So it only shows the top half, and it shows his hand here and his head. Everything down, picture bubble wrap, and you popped all the bubbles, and there's those little spaces in between. That's what the guy looks like. I mean, he's just blown through there's like a bazillion holes in him. It's very funny looking. It's super cartoony. I love it. It looks great. Like I said, it's kind of cartoony gore, but you could still tell that this is a Garthinus book from the language. It's a very mature book, by the way. And then it says his alternate fate ends up being a wanking accident. And it's, like I said, you got to read this. It's hilarious. So anyway, while this is going on, Otto tries to get away, and Harry ends up tasing him, cuffs him, and they jump out of that time stream. Once again, this is the final cutback. It cuts back to Marjorie, who is now out of the shower at her secret lair. She took a shower. Of course, she felt dirty. And her hideout is like in a pocket dimension of the time stream. So there's one part where she looks out the window and there's these ducks flying by, but instead of duck heads, they're boxing gloves attached to duck. Like it's really crazy looking. But this is where we meet Tim, and Tim is just a head. He's got a couple of mechanical things around the base of the neck, but he's just a head. And according to Marjorie, it was something that was sort of kind of her fault, but that's why she keeps him around. That and the fact that he's really good at his job. He's basically her tech guy and the guy who jumps her from one place to another in the time stream. While she's talking to Tim, you see that someone has snuck a camera into the lair. And these two people are now watching her as she's dancing around in a towel, singing some song. I couldn't tell what the song was, but she's singing a song, and these two people are watching her as she's dancing around this towel, and they're having this really pretty funny conversation. I won't get too much into that. I don't want to spoil every single thing for you. But there's one part of the conversation where you see Marge drops her towel, and she goes down to pick it up, and by the time she gets it wrapped back on her, the two guys are like, "Oh crap, did we just miss something?" It was pretty funny. I thought it was pretty funny. The next panel she's starting to get dressed, and Tim starts yelling, "We've been breached! We've been breached! Somebody's gotten through!" She finishes getting dressed, grabs a shotgun, grabs Tim, hops out the window, runs alongside this hideout, only to run into Harry, who also just happens to be Marjorie's sister. And that is where I'm going to leave it, because that was the end of the book. I had a great time reading this. I was super excited for this comic, like I said at the beginning, and I was not disappointed. It's only going to be 8 issues, but so far this looks like it's going to be a hell of a good time. Real quick before I go, just want to plug this real fast. We are not in any way, shape, or form affiliated with these folks, but anytime we can talk about them, we will. If you're into comics, more so into variants, you've got to check out our friends over at Four Color Fiends. Tomorrow, or today, it should be today, is when this video is going to go up. May 10th at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time or noon Eastern Standard Time, the variant for Apex Cybernetic Samurai Owl from Four Color Fiends is going to be out. And I was on the live stream the other day, I want to say it was Friday, when they were talking about this. This cover looks amazing. Check out Four Color Fiends nonetheless, with Dr. Christie and the King of Comics himself, Garrett Gunn. That's not what we call him. I just thought alliteration sounded good. Garrett Gunn, King of Comics, Comic King. We're just throwing stuff out there. I'm trying to make apologies for just the joke name that I gave him during the live stream. I was just kidding. That wasn't meant to be real. Anyway, love the folks over at Four Color Fiends. Please check them out. They've got some awesome things coming up. And that's going to be all from me today, folks. You stay safe, you be healthy, or you be safe, stay healthy. One of the two. And I'll catch you next time. Later, tots.